So in previous lectures we've been talking about the concept of opportunity cost because we need to make choices to maximize our living standards. This is because our needs and wants are unlimited compared to the goods and services available to consume. Now, in this lecture we'll be talking about how we can map opportunity cost in a diagram using the production possibility frontier. So this is what economists use to develop all the different opportunity costs a country can forego, and therefore determine where resources should be allocated so that living standards are maximized. So the production possibility diagram, or the production possibility frontier, is a diagrammatical representation of opportunity cost. Now, we're just, for simplicity, going to assume that this nation only produces goods and services. Of course, in reality, nations produce a lot of goods and a lot of services, but this can't be mapped in a two-dimensional space. So for country alpha, we're going to assume that they only produce goods or services. Now, we can see from this graph that country alpha can produce at level A, which is 0 units of goods and 10 million units of services, B, C, D, E, or F, respectively. Now let's map this on the diagram. So at point A we have 0 and 10. At point B we have 1 billion units of goods and 9.8 billion units of services. So here's point A, point B. C, we have 2 billion units of goods, 8.5 billion units of services. D, 3 billion units of goods and 7 billion units of services. E, 4 and 4 billion respectively. Sorry, that's meant to be an E. And 5 billion dollars worth of goods and $0 billion worth of services at production possibility F. So if we join the lines, we get a production possibility frontier. And we must note that the country isn't restricted to only producing at A, B, C, D, E, or F, but they can produce anywhere on these lines. But for simplicity, we are only using 6 hypothetical cases where the country can produce at A, B, C, D, E, or F. So how does an economist determine where this country should produce? If we assume that the pleasure or the satisfaction derived from consuming a unit of goods and services, a unit of good or a unit of service, corresponds with the price that the consumer has paid for it, we can just add these up and get the satisfaction in dollar terms. So if you add the value of goods here at point A, you get 0 plus the value of services, which is 10 billion, and you get $10 billion worth of pleasure. Here at point B, you get 1 plus 9.8, and you get $10.8 billion worth of pleasure at point B. 10.5 for C, 3 plus 7, which is 10, 4 plus 4, which is 8, and 5 plus 0, which is 5. So now we can see all the different levels or amounts of pleasure or satisfaction the residents of country alpha obtains from each of the different production possibilities. And as you can see, at point B, they derive the most pleasure. So here, at this point B, opportunity cost is minimized and living standards are maximized. So for economists to look at this production possibility frontier, they're going to look at point B and they're going to say, okay, this country should produce 1 billion units of goods and 9.8 billion units of services. But what if an economist says, what if this country can produce $2 billion worth of goods and $10 billion worth of services? That would make $12 billion, and that would be more than $10.8 billion. But at this point we can see that 2 and 10 will be some point here. Let's call this point G, and the resources available for this economy at this point in time would not be sufficient to produce at point G. And similarly, the production possibility diagram also shows where the economy is underutilizing resources, land, labor, and capital. So if they are producing at 3 billion units of goods and 5 billion units of services at point H, let's say, then they would be underutilizing their resources. So their opportunity cost here at point H would not be minimized. So let's put a cross next to the minimized, and also a cross next to the living standards, because their living standards are not maximized. Because we know for the resources currently available at point P is where opportunity cost is minimized and living standards are maximized. So how would a nation get to point G? This is another thing that economists can determine using the production possibility frontier. What they could do to get to point G is to move the production possibility frontier to the right. So let's just make this pink, and let's move this production possibility to the right, where we have this. And now we can see that the production possibility frontier has moved to the right, and therefore G lies within the production possibility frontier. It is only then that the country is able to produce $10 billion worth of services and $2 billion worth of goods. So to move the production possibility to the right, they would have to change supply side conditions. And this is an area of economics that we'll talk about later when we talk about aggregate supply policies relating to the economy. But for now, what we need to know is that the production possibility diagram is a diagrammatical representation. So let's underline diagrammatical representation of opportunity costs. And this is fundamentally important when determining where we should allocate our resources so that our opportunity cost is minimized and our living standards are maximized.